Kareem, thank you very much, and I'm honored to be speaking to the Egyptian arm of DAMA. I applaud what you're doing as an organization, trying to drive, data awareness and data literacy throughout, your customers and your constituents, because this topic of literacy with respect to AI, and it was summarized, I think, very well in our pre-conversation, isn't just a topic that's relevant for the high priesthood of data scientists and data engineers. It's a conversation that we all need to be involved in. And the reason why is that the economic potential of AI is staggering. There's no part of the world, there's no profession, there's no job, there's no industry that's not going to be heavily impacted by AI. It is truly a generational opportunity. But the challenge in this space is that while the potential is great, the benefits are very unevenly distributed. That there are some people who are going to win, but there are going to be some people who lose. And in order to make certain that we don't create yet more divide in our countries and our society, we need to find a way to make sure that everybody is brought into this process, that the economic benefits of AI and data can be easily enjoyed and by everyone to drive their personal and professional development, so they cannot struggle in the world of AI, but can actually thrive in a world of AI. There's also something here too, is that this AI movement is already underway. And I love this term from Cathy O'Neil and her book, Weapons of Math Destruction. This idea about how do we as a society, and how do we, especially as data professionals, what is our obligation to ensure the responsible and ethical use of AI and data, right? We already see today across a number of different cases on the right-hand side, in employment and housing and lending and finance and criminal justice, we see the uneven application of AI, these weapons of mass destruction being used to impact people. These models that are being run are very opaque. We don't know what they are. People don't necessarily know that they're impacted by it. The models themselves many times are using inaccurate, incomplete, and biased data to drive and produce inaccurate, incomplete, and biased outcomes. The quality of the data is critical for driving responsible and ethical outcomes from data and analytics. It's affecting millions of people today. And I think that's what surprises people. A lot of people are thinking this AI conversation is something that's yet to happen, or that AI is only new because of ChatGPT, but it's been around for a while. And it's impacting millions of people without even them being aware of it. And the ramifications of of improper, irresponsible, unethical use of data can harm people, their rights, can erode trust, can erode democracy, can disenfranchise people, deny them a voice they need, and create all kinds of social and economic conflict and instability. We, as a society, need to get in front of this. Data and analytics, especially AI, is a force for good, but equally it can be a force that has all kinds of unintended consequences that we need to get in front of. So before we talk about what are the variables, what are the factors that we need to think about in making sure everybody is educated around the potential and power of AI and data, let's first talk about what is AI. And let's start by let's simplify the conversation. Because right now, I think a lot of people think of AI, they think of movies like Matrix and 2001: A Space Odyssey, or iRobot, or Eagle Eye, or whatever. They think of these movies where AI is some evil force that's bound to wipe out, like in Terminator, wipe out humanity. But here's the thing about AI. Here's a simple, single slide that talks about what AI does. It is up to us to simplify the conversation. Let's take a look at these bullet points, right? It seeks to optimize actions based on our desired outcomes as framed by what we're trying to accomplish. Okay, we define that. We define the desired outcomes and we define our outcome. AI is constantly interacting with its environment, and that interaction has caused it to learn, right? To evaluate the inputs and metrics and the relative weights that comprise the AI utility function in order to make decisions and actions. It measures the effectiveness of those decisions and actions, back propagation and stochastic gradient descent, if you want to get real nerdy. It feeds the results back to the AI utility function, and the AI utility function constantly learns and updates its weights and utility values. And it can do this with minimal human intervention. And of course, an autonomous vehicle is a great example of this. But it all starts with us defining up front what it is we're trying to accomplish. What are our desired outcomes? What are the gains and pains that the benefits and the impediments? It starts by understanding what it is we're trying to accomplish. That's a very human engagement process. And then we go through the process of understanding, well, how do we define then value? Given that we're trying to achieve these outcomes across a range of stakeholders, how do we define value? And what are the KPIs and metrics against we're going to measure that value creation effectiveness? And finally, how do we codify that? How do we codify the desired outcomes, the intent, the value into our AI utility function so that it actually drives a responsible, ethical AI model? The heart, of course, of this is, again, the AI utility function. The AI utility function is the thing that's constantly interacting. It's like a little mental robot, an AI-influenced agent who's constantly evaluating the situation, is looking at the action it's taking, is getting feedback, and it's adapting. Think about an autonomous vehicle again. Think about an autonomous car, how it's interacting in this environment. Every time it passes another car, right, it's making decisions and learning from the result of that. It makes a decision to pass the car, and it gets feedback whether it's successful. It takes an action on whether to stop at a traffic jam, right? And it gets feedback. It's constantly adjusting and learning. It's the AI utility function that's the key. And the key for successful AI models to deliver meaningful, relevant, responsible, and ethical outcomes is all dependent on that AI utility function. And when we define an AI utility function, this is defined by humans. It's us. It isn't robots building robots. It isn't like iRobot, right? It's humans defining the variables and metrics around which we're going to define the value process. Notice, by the way, that when we start thinking about AI and creating value, we must broaden the dimensions around which we are going to define AI. Sure, financial, operational, customer, those are all kind of traditional ways. We're trying to optimize our ROI, or trying to operationalize our productivity and customer satisfaction. But it's broader than that. You have to incorporate employees, because employees are a key stakeholder who are also sources of value creation. You have to look at partners, suppliers, your ecosystem. And then I'm going to blow the ones on the left side up here. You've got social ramifications, you've got environmental ramifications, you've got ethical. And for each of those areas, we want to capture KPIs and metrics that we can use to ensure that the AI utility function is working on our behalf. It is helping improve society. It is helping to improve environmental situation, and it is operating and delivering ethical and responsible results. One thing I think that confuses the average person is that the challenge for AI is actually building conflict into the AI utility function. Now, this is unusual, because when you think about optimization, we like to identify a small number of variables and metrics, and we want to optimize along that. But when you have an AI model that is unlike any other sort of analytics we've seen in the past, you have to build conflict. You need to force the AI model to make trade-off decisions based on its intention and based on its current situation. It's kind of like us as humans. You think about any decision you make throughout the day. Think about this today. As you're going through the day, take a moment and write down a decision you've made. And think about all the variables you had to decide on what I was going to do, right? I'm going to go to the grocery store. I need to pick up some food. Well, how am I going to decide which store to go to? How am I going to decide which food to get? You may have to go out to eat. You may have to go have, a car service or something. Even deciding what to watch on the television, right there. We make decisions every day, and every decision requires us to balance a series of conflicting variables and metrics that are optimized for the moment we're in. The decision we make today about where we go eat, for example, may be very different than the one we make tomorrow, maybe different than the one we make a week from now. Why? Because the situation is going to change. And so we need to build conflict and diversity into our AI utility function. And by the way, there's all kinds of mathematical algorithms out there that can help our AI utility function, this multi-objective optimization techniques, to optimize this. But understand, it's optimizing in light of this current situation. Much like an autonomous vehicle, it's analyzing its current situation. It's trying to figure out its intention, what it's trying to accomplish, and it makes a decision accordingly, balancing all those different variables and metrics. So AI is actually a very simple concept. We use the AI utility function. It's the beating heart of our AI model. So we need to think carefully about the metrics we put inside there, the variables and metrics around which we want to optimize the performance of our AI model. We want to think about building conflict into it, and we want to make sure we understand and are constantly measuring intent and taking advantage of the fact that this AI model can continuously learn and adapt. Excuse me. Early morning here. So let's jump into this. Let's jump into what we as data professionals owe it to everybody else, our obligation to help evangelize the power of AI and data literacy, and in the process, empower everybody to become citizens of data science, to understand where and how they can apply data and analytics to advance society, their professional lives, and their personal lives. It starts off with a very important fundamental concept. What do we mean by citizenship? What does it mean to be a citizen of data science? Now, being a citizen isn't a passive activity. It isn't something that's given to us. Being a citizen and citizenship requires stepping up, taking action. Excuse me a second. Recorded for all eternity, me coughing. It requires us as citizens to be proactive in defining and taking a meaningful stake in building a better world. Citizenship isn't passive. You want to experience data in AI literacy. If you want to become literate about them, then you as a citizen, you must step up. And what I've talked about in my book is that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's a counter every time, different areas around which data and AI literacy revolves. These are things that we need to educate people and ourselves be aware of in helping to drive citizens of data science through AI and data literacy. The first one is around data and privacy awareness. First off is we need to be aware that the data about us is everywhere, right? It's, big data is about this. It's about the sensors. It's about all the surveillance cameras out there. Big data ultimately is about me. And what's happening is all the data about me is being tracked, whether it's through a smartphone or through an iPhone or a car driving around or surveillance cameras. We are being tracked. And all that information about us is very valuable to all sorts of organizations who are trying to figure out how best to serve us, or in some cases, what to sell us next. This is an example of me going for a jog and all the different organizations that would love to have information about me, how often I jog, how long I jog, how hard I work, what my heartbeat is, right? It wants to know more about me so that it actually can use that to make intelligent choices and predictions about what I might like so it can prescribe prescriptive actions. It does this, big data basically is building out what I call a concept called nanoeconomics, which is an economic concept around individualized behavioral and performance propensities. It's learning what I like best, what my probability of acting in a certain way, and it's using that information to drive precision decisions. It's not blanketing me with random advertisement. The doctor's not blanketing me with random, healthcare advice. It's looking at my situation. For example, in the healthcare space, my health, my age, my weight, my history. It's using all that to help make very precise decisions about what I should be eating, what medicine I should be taking, my health conditions, and all kinds of my diet and all kinds of other things, right? But it gets down as big data is not about big. Big data is about granularity. It's about you. So the first part of this AI and data literacy is to be aware that these organizations of all sorts are capturing individualized data created by you because you've enabled that by the phones, by the cars, by the cameras, by the watches. It's all out there. And so some of that data is going to be used for good, and some of that data can be used to influence negative behaviors. But remember, the goal here, these organizations, they want to understand your propensity so they can influence what you do, what you buy, where you go, what movies you watch, heck, even who you date. The second aspect is around AI and analytics techniques and such. Now, I don't expect that the vast majority of people out there are ever going to write a neural network. Probably not going to happen. Maybe with ChatGPT, we can ask it to write one and it'll do one for us. But we need to understand that there is a spectrum of analytics out there that are being used today to capture information about you, to influence you, and information about you that you can use to help drive better outcomes. The traditional operation reporting, the business intelligence spaces, reporting analytics, these are the reports that you probably get from your bank that shows you how your stocks have done, how your account's growing. This is the reports you get from your credit card company that shows how much you're spending, way too much, by the way, and your payments. Right? It's just telling you what happened. Nothing. It's just basics. And what these organizations want to do is they want to leverage predictive and prescriptive analytics to actually try to create what I call optimization analytics. Based on what you have been doing, they want to quantify cause and effect, predict behaviors, and prescribe actions and recommendations. They want to become very optimized. What products might you want to buy? You think about it from a grocery store. They're looking across all their regular customers. They're trying to figure out what products they like to buy, at what days, what kind of coupons do they use, what kind of price do they want to pay, and they're using all this information to figure out their staffing, their stocking, their procurement, their inventory management. So they're using all that detailed information to aggregate up and optimize the operations of that store. Same thing true for any sort of organization, whether it be a theme park or a hospital or a manufacturing institute, right? It's all the same. What's different and what's happened with AI is not necessarily an optimization analytics. It's a learning analytics, especially as we see it in the case of reinforcement learning, which to me is one of the most common sort of autonomous analytic capabilities, where these analytics are constantly learning and adapting. And sometimes they're doing this with very minimal human intervention. And this is what's different about things. This is what makes AI scary, because you're not just optimizing, it's learning and adapting on its own. And the requirement to define those variables and metrics holistically to ensure that the AI models, these autonomous analytics, are learning and adapting in a way that's consistent with the moral and ethical norms of our society are critical. To get there's a methodology, a framework that I use when I work with customers. I call it thinking like a data scientist methodology. And this is not a methodology just for data scientists. This is a methodology that integrates design thinking concepts that brings together the different stakeholders into this process. It isn't just about senior executives in some organization deciding they're going to do this and then the data science team building this. You need to go through a process using design thinking techniques, this empowerment of design thinking, to understand and empathize with your stakeholders, to understand what it is they're trying to accomplish, what are their desired outcomes, what are the key decisions they're trying to make, what are the KPIs and metrics against which they're going to measure effectiveness. And by the way, you're going to want to use them to help brainstorm the variables and metrics to features that might be better predictors of performance to deliver the responsible and ethical outcomes that we want. This process is not just for data science or data scientists. It's a process that we need to bring everybody into so they understand their role, their opportunity as a citizen to be involved in this process to ensure that the results that we're delivering with our analytics are meaningful, relevant, responsible, and ethical. Let me give you an example. Oops, I'll do an example later. Next, I want to talk about decision-making frameworks, making decisions, right? How do we as humans make better decisions? Because let's be really honest, as humans, we make terrible decisions. We are not good at making decisions. The casinos, this is a picture of Las Vegas, right? They don't build these monstrous casinos of all this glorious stuff because humans are good decision makers. No, they build them because humans have all kinds of decision flaws, overconfidence and anchoring and risk aversion. And the one that's the most dangerous one of all, I think, is confirmation bias. So We as humans do not make good decisions. We need to start the decision-making process by understanding the areas around which we don't make good decisions. Understanding where we don't make good decisions gives us an opportunity to work around that. And the best way to work around that is to put in place a decision-making framework. Now, you should pick one that works for you. This is one that I teach in my class. Very simple, right? Start with what we're trying to do, create a decision matrix that helps me to figure out how I'm going to make a decision. It looks at all the different variables and the cost and ramifications, risk ramifications of the decision. Research and grab data, do a cost benefit analysis, explore worst case scenarios, understand the cost of the decision being wrong, and then present what you're learning in a way that's actionable to your stakeholders. Very iterative process that needs to involve all your stakeholders in this process. Again, it's not just done by the data science team. It isn't something that's just mandated by senior executive. In order for us as humans to make better decisions, we need models. Sometimes a model can be really simple. If we're trying to make a decision as far as what cereal to buy, right? My decision-making framework's really easy. Captain Crunch or Wheaties, right? Well, I'm in a mood for Captain Crunch today, right? But when we start making it more meaningful decisions, buying cars, buying houses, getting married, running marketing campaigns, building stores, right? The decision process it's still a process, becomes more meaty in the sense you're going to need more data and analytics and more assessment of the cost and benefits in order to do that. As you're going through this process, decision-making process, one thing that's very critical to understand that everybody needs to understand are the ramifications of false positive and false negatives that come out of this confusion matrix. By the way, if there's ever something that was better named, confusion matrix is the absolute great name for what the confusion matrix is. But what a confusion matrix does, it helps you understand when models are wrong. For example, excuse me, if we're trying to hire somebody, a true positive is hiring somebody who we believe will be successful and they end up being successful. A true negative is not hiring somebody who will not be successful and they fail. A false positive is hiring somebody you believe will be successful, but they are not, right? Which is actually pretty easy to track in an organization because you have all kinds of systems in place. False negatives, though, kind of like a true negative, is harder. Not hiring someone who you believe will not be successful, so not hiring someone you believe will not be successful, but they are successful someplace else. In my example, that's the Einstein, right? We decide we're not going to hire Einstein because we don't like his hairdo. And he ends up being brilliant, right? And redefining things, right? So it's important for organizations to have a process in place where they're trying to identify the false positive and false negatives from your models so we can learn from those. And if we don't do that, then we can't build models that can continuously learn and adapt. We also have to teach. So we have to teach people the basics of false positive and false negatives. We're going to come back to this more in a second. You need to understand that idea that we make models, we make decisions, but no decision is 100%. Let's be really clear, they're not 100%. And so we need to understand, identify, and learn from situations where the model is wrong. And of course, in a decision model, we must force critical thinking. We must force people, especially as the costs of being wrong get more dramatic. Are we spending the right amount of time to think critically about the answer that's fed to us? This, by the way, is one of the biggest challenges today with ChatGPT. And I see countless cases of people who are asking very simple questions, getting a simple answer back from ChatGPT or Bing or whatever you use, and never going back and challenging it, asking for its sources, asking for its rationale, asking for why it decided this. We must think critically. And this is more important than ever with generative AI and the ability for generative AI products to bring answers to us that look and sound right, but we've got to challenge us. We must be skeptical. Predictions and statistics. This gets back to decision making. There's a very tight correlation here. And if we're trying to make better decisions, we're going to leverage some basic statistics. Moneyball was a marvelous book here in the United States, that really taught people using the simple game of baseball, how they could use analytics and probabilities to win games, right? This is an example here I'm playing baseball. Understanding where a player is most likely to hit a baseball, you can move your position players to positions where they can improve the probability of being there when the ball is hit to them. very simple idea of using probabilities to make better decisions. We all need to understand probabilities, but we also need to understand that probabilities are probabilities. There's no 100% guarantee this is going to happen. It's all percentages of this. And there's also need to understand the difference in variances, right? That is that the standard deviation is that an understanding confidence level. So if we're making a decision, if I have a 95% confidence in this decision, I understand the confidence level around that. So again, there's some very basics statistics. We don't need to give all of our stakeholders a course, a one-on-one course in statistics, but they need to understand that we can leverage statistics to make better choices. Statistics don't mean 100%, and we need to understand confidence levels if we're going to make decisions that are informed and thoughtful to deliver these more meaningful, more relevant, more responsible, more ethical results. One last thing I always talk about too. We talk about statistics, but be careful because averages are not average. What I mean by that is that when you start making decisions based on averages, what you'll find out very quickly is that no one is average. That when you start applying the law of averages to make decisions that in reality, no one is averages and you're making decisions for literally nobody. And so this gets to this part down where we talk about nanoeconomics and understanding individual propensities. We need to make decisions not based on averages, but we need to make decisions based on individuals. We need to humanize decision making. We need to look at our patients and not say on average, if you're 65 years old and you're 20 pounds overweight and you have a diabetes situation that you need to do this. No, we need to get down to individual people. We need to humanize decision making by leveraging data not at the level of averages, but at the level of the individual behavioral and performance propensities. Let's talk about value engineering, because if we aren't leveraging AI and data to create value for our society, then why bother? Why even go through this? And so there's the value conversation doesn't start with data, doesn't start with AI. It starts with your stakeholders and understanding what it is they're trying to accomplish. What are the goals they're seeking? What are the desired outcomes? What are the key decisions? What are the KPIs and metrics? That defining value means you need to broaden the conversation. You need to look at internal and external stakeholders. You're targeting a business initiative. You say your business initiative is to improve quality of care in a hospital, to improve the quality of results in a hospital. You're going to want to talk to a broad range of stakeholders, constituents who either impact or are impacted by that initiative. Internal nurses, doctors, technicians. Externally, you got to talk to patients. You got to talk to pharmaceuticals. You got to talk to research institutes. You got to talk to a wide range of organizations to understand, for this business initiative, what are we trying to accomplish? What are the key decisions our stakeholders need to make? And what are the KPIs and metrics against which you're going to measure effectiveness? So the value conversation supersedes the data and AI conversation. The data and AI conversation means nothing if we haven't clearly defined as an organization how we create value. Let me give you an example. This is a design thinking template that we use in our thinking like a data scientist process. And so we pick a business initiative, and then we go through a process of bringing together a wide range of stakeholders to understand ideal outcomes or desired outcomes, benefits, potential impediments, the ramifications of failure. Think about this. Taking the time to articulate what are the ramifications if this initiative fails. And the bottom right one, unintended consequences. We know in AI, let me back up. We know with human leadership, we tend to make decisions without giving due diligence to the potential unintended consequences. We see this all the time from our political leaders and sometimes our corporate leaders. We need to understand and put in place a process to identify those unintended consequences. And the reason why this is important is because we're going to actually capture KPIs for each one of these things. For example, let's go down to unintended consequences again. I'm going to talk about this further, right? If these are the unintended consequences of my initiative here, what are the KPIs and metrics that I want to capture and measure to help me identify and mitigate the unintended consequences. How do I put in place KPIs and metrics to avoid unintended consequences? How do I put in KPIs and metrics, for example, to identify and mitigate potential impediments? What are the KPIs and metrics around which I can use to mitigate the ramifications of failure of my initiative? You start seeing what's happening here. When you start bringing a diverse set of stakeholders together and you start looking at the ramifications of how is value created and what are the impediments to that, what are the risks associated with that, I now have a much more holistic view of the KPIs and metrics around which my AI model is going to have to optimize in order to deliver results that are meaningful, relevant, responsible, and ethical for all of my stakeholders. Ethics, the heart of the whole process. Right? What is ethics? There's a couple of things that get in the way around ethics. And the first one, I start thinking about AI and ethics around confirmation bias. Right? Confirmation bias is a tendency for models to basically keep doing the same things over and over again. That we are going to give higher weights to the things that we already know what to do, and we're going to ignore data that contradicts that. Confirmation bias is a huge problem in social media, for example, and it's a huge source of division in this world, that people only seeking out information they want, because confirmation bias creates this echo chamber effect. We only keep getting fed information that we already believe, right? We're not being exposed to new thinking. We're not being driven to look at different perspectives. And the ramifications here are twofold. One is, first off, you reduce the overall organization's total addressable market. Right? What's going to happen is that you're going to actually start shrinking the market you can reach. Why? Because you are only reaching out to existing customers, you're not reaching out to new customers. This is also the basis for disenfranchising people. Right? This is a heart of a problem of people with confirmation bias not feel like their voice is being heard. They're hearing the same thing over and over again because we've created this echo chamber. To avoid this, we as data professionals need to mandate that we build a feedback loop. So we're taking the results of our models, the false positives and false negatives, all the other variables, and we're making sure that we're feeding that back to continuously update and train our AI models and tweak our AI utility function. We should never build an AI model without having a feedback loop, because that's a recipe for disaster. That's a recipe for building a model that will optimize you right out of business and will optimize you right into social unrest. We must, as data professionals, ensure that our models have a feedback loop so that we're constantly learning, that we've got a robust set of variables and metrics, and we're using those variables and metrics to continuously learn and adapt so that we are delivering meaningful, relevant, responsible, and ethical results. The second challenge is around unintended consequences. And this one scares me. Right, with confirmation bias, I know by properly preparing the data and by building this feedback loop, excuse me, I can put in place processes to help mitigate confirmation bias. Unintended consequences don't scare me. They scare me because we have a habit of leaders making decisions without thinking through the ramifications of decisions. The one I like is this one on the SS Eastland, which was a ship they had built. In order to make it more safe, they put on a whole bunch of lifeboats. And they put on so many lifeboats that it actually capsized and killed 800 passengers, right? No one thought through the fact that by adding lifeboats, we were going to add weight and destabilize this boat. No one thought about it? Well, probably not at the executive ranks, but the problem is in order to identify these unintended consequences, we need to leverage things like design thinking to empower ideation, to empower everybody, especially the front lines of an organization. The SS Eastland could have been avoided, I'm certain, by having talked to an engineer or the captain of the ship or anybody else and said, what could go wrong with this idea? And design thinking is about bringing together diverse perspectives, especially from the front lines of the organizations, the front lines of customer engagement and operational execution, and letting them have a voice, right? This is important, right? All ideas are worthy of consideration is a very powerful statement. It says that I appreciate your voice and I want to hear your voice and I want to consider what you have to say. Now, it doesn't say that all ideas are good. It doesn't say all ideas are right, but it said all ideas are worthy of consideration because ideas might lead to new ideas, might lead to new ideas that help us address this. And by the way, in the bottom right-hand side, if you don't empower enough of these might moments, these ideas that these things might be wrong, if you don't empower these might moments, you'll never have any breakthrough moments. So using our design thinking concepts, we built this template that helps us for a business initiative to start brainstorming, ideating what are all the scenarios where things can go wrong. Right, this is I launch a Head Start program to feed all K-6 through 12 students. Right, What if one of the scenarios is what if this initiative insults our targeted constituents? What if the program we built to help support K through 6 students actually insults them and their parents? Well, what are the scenario factors and what are the measures and variables that we can track both short-term and long-term to track this? We don't know if this is going to happen, but it might happen. Remember, if you don't have enough might moments, never any breakthrough moments. So if it might happen, how do I put in place variables and metrics? And how do I, by the way, empower people to start creating all these different scenarios, brainstorming these scenarios? How do I empower that ideation? Last comment. None of this works if people aren't empowered and don't feel empowered. The path to cultural empowerment and the path to innovation starts by allowing people to embrace their natural curiosity that leads to creativity that drives innovation. The problem we have as a society is that we have spent a lot of our time in our school systems, both in high school and colleges, in our businesses and professions. We've done a lot of work to rub out curiosity. We have standardized curriculums and standardized tests and standardized classes and standardized tunes, and we have standardized job descriptions. We have standardized organizational charts, and people are put in standardized boxes in order to deliver standardized reports. We have standardized human thinking. And one thing that AI prospers at is standardization. We need to unleash the natural curiosity. And there's some bullet points about it, right? It's not about skill sets, it's about mindset, not about technology, it's about culture, it's not about control, it's actually about giving up control and not optimizing, but innovating. It's not knowing, it's learning. It's not about cost, it's about value. How do we, as a culture, as organizations, unleash that natural curiosity where all ideas are worthy of consideration? Allow people to explore, to try, to test, to fail. Learn from fail and try again. Failure is bad if you're in a controlled structure, a predefined standardized structure, but failure is important if you're trying to drive innovation and create, new ideas to fuel from curiosity, new creativity, and to reinvent. The real power we have as a society isn't AI, isn't data, but it's empowering our people with the idea to explore, to leverage data and analytics to explore, but they have to have ideas first, and they can't be afraid to fail. Because if you're not failing, you're not learning. I hope that was useful, and I guess we have time for some Q&A. A lot of time.
Bill, thank you very much. This has been really inspiring, and there's a lot of elaboration. I mean, that now helps for us to navigate the book better. I will start my first question, if everybody doesn't mind. So when ChatGPT came out and, generative, everybody started talking about the threat to existing jobs, like graphic designer's job is dead, all that stuff. But when I'm reading more into your books, Bill, I discovered no, AI need them. Their jobs are not redundant. For the sake of brainstorming, collaborating, and what you just mentioned now, design thinking, maybe their title will change from a creative designer into a design thinker. Am I wrong in that, or?
No, you're spot on. I think what I'm seeing as people start playing with ChatGPT, a lot of people start off with kind of that fear that it's going to take my job. They start realizing some, not all, that if they start leveraging natural curiosity to start exploring, that they're doing things they didn't do before and couldn't do before. That, yeah, Chat GPT has kind of taken on some of the mundane tasks, but it's actually freeing up my mind to explore different things. I'm actually going through a process right now. I have this, art of thinking like a data scientist methodology, and I'm trying to integrate generative AI into that whole methodology. I just released my second blog on my journey. And what I've learned so far is that when I started this journey, when I started to integrate this into my methodology, and it's nice to have a framework in place around which I can test this. What I thought I was going to get was productivity improvements. They were going to be able, my students would be able to do things faster. They'd be able to do the exercises faster. What I'm learning, it isn't the productivity, it's the innovation. They're asking more thoughtful questions. They're having a conversation. They're interrogating. They're not accepting the answer as is. They're asking for more clarification. I like to joke that they're basically becoming Socrates. Right? They're embracing the Socratic method and asking deeper and deeper questions. And what's happening is their natural curiosity starts to come forward. They're not afraid to ask a dumb question because Chat GPT is not going to say that's a dumb question. Where, a person or a professor might say it's a dumb question. The minute you say something's a dumb question, you've killed their curiosity. And Chat GPT doesn't judge, but I find it to unleash, and I think it's going to be the beautiful ramification here of AI, not just generative AI, but all of AI is going to help us become more effective as doctors, as engineers, as lawyers, as baristas, as taxi cab drivers or truck drivers. It's going to help us become much more effective because AI is going to help us make much more informed decisions.
Thank you, Bill. That was enlightening. And I think earlier, before we start the session, Hisham was, talking about ethics. And I think ethics here, you touched lightly on it in the presentation, but it is critical, like we've learned, how we, teach our team, the people that are working with us, that we have to do the right thing rather than what we want. So,
great point. This is an interesting conversation. I think most people, as individuals, do seek to do the right thing. I'm always taken back to my Sunday school days and the lesson in the Bible about the Good Samaritan, and the difference between do no harm and do good. And my experience through my students and others I've worked with is most people, the vast majority, not all, but most people want to do good. What happens is sometimes we put those people who want to do good, we put them into artificial bounds, and they're forced to have to sometimes abandon their ethics in order to deliver what the organization wants. And that's exactly the wrong response. We as humans must say no. I don't know how many people have watched the movie Big. It features Tom Hanks, right? There's a scene in that movie where they're talking about something and the whole group is so excited about this, and he's brave, the bravery to raise his hand and say, I don't get it. Mm-hmm. And that's what empowerment is. We need to make certain that our organizations, our leaders, are empowering people to raise their hand and say, I don't get it. That's not right. We need that if we're going to make sure that these AI models deliver responsible and ethical outcomes.
So we need to be the discriminator of the AI somehow. We're telling him, no, wrong. Find another solution. This is not good.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. The AI models are only going to do what we train it to do.
Right.
Period. Right. It isn't some beast that's going to walk into my office here and take over all of a sudden I'm going to get replaced by some Terminators giving the same presentation, probably give it better than me. Right. No. We, as the humans, define the criteria around which we're going to train these models. It is us. And this is why AI doesn't scare me at all, not in the least. What scares me are our leaders who for a long time have sought to optimize their own capabilities. This probably get me in trouble, right? But we need to demand their leaders. I'm going to go back to a slide a second. Can you see my slides? Am I still sharing?
No.
Let me, the slide I skipped over, I want to share it. Can you see this slide?
Yes, we can.
This is what empowerment means, right? The second from the bottom on the left, empowered to ask our leaders, ask more of our leaders and demand that they embrace the measures that benefit everyone, not just measures that benefit them, right? There's these bullet points, which is in the last part of chapter 9. It's this, when I got done through the whole book, I read through the book, one last review, and I said, it's missing something. It's missing, what does it mean to be empowered? And I just started writing. For about 10 minutes, this just came out. All these bullet points, I put them directly as is, I wrote them down. This is what empowered means. This to me is the most important part of the book, that we give people and we empower people. And that's scary. That's scary for leaders who think that their leadership is built around their ability to amass control. Empowerment is about giving up control. So what scares me? AI? Not at all. Our leaders scare me to death because they are the ones that need to realize that they're at the cusp of unleashing this greatness that's built inside the human race. And to do that, we need to empower everybody.
Thank you, Bill. Muhammad, you have a question? Please go ahead.
I think you're on mute, maybe?
Muhammad, we can't hear you. If you have it, yes, we can hear you now.
This is Muhammad Khairi. Are you talking to me?
Talking to Muhammad Ghazala. Okay, he's raising his hand.
Sorry, no.
If you're on mute, Muhammad, you can type your question, okay, in the chat.
Okay. Kareem, for the time being, if I can take over.
Yes, please.
The next question. Hi, Bill. It's me, Hashim, again. Yeah, it's a great and fascinating presentation. It did touch on a few kind of like area or domains that, of course, was short-sighted from myself, especially with the critical evaluation of the process, and that will give me a lens of data governance in a way. So how can we ensure data governance around AI? And to bring this to life a little bit, let's say, for example, I'm training my model with a lot of information. So if I look at the data source, has this data source been vetted for credibility, accuracy, relevance, all of these information, the quality of the data, how good, can we define the quality of the data that need to be used for AI so I can trust the output of that?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a hard question. Because as hard as data science is, data engineering is harder. And ensuring that we have data sets. See, the challenge is we could spend our entire lives trying to clean the data. And the challenge becomes, when is the data good enough? And how do we build a process that has a feedback loop to it so that the data is constantly being updated and improved? To make that decision as far as when is our data good enough requires us to understand the costs of the wrong decisions. What are the costs of the false positives and the false negatives? And what are the variables and metrics we're using that are leading to those false positives and false negatives, so that if we're going to focus our data governance, maybe data enrichment, trying to create data that's more reflective of the general population. I hate the term biased data. I'll come back in a second. So I do think that this process starts by understanding what's the cost of being wrong. What's the cost of false positive and false negatives? Because you're better off to jump in even with data that's not completely accurate, if you know that the models and results I give are within realms of the cost of being wrong. Let me talk about bias now, because we as humans have preferences. People would call them biases, right? I prefer a certain sports team over another sports team. I prefer a certain beer over another beer, right? I prefer a certain kind of sushi versus another sushi, right? I have my biases, right? My preferences. And so the fine line between a bias and a preference is really hard. When we talk about bias, especially for protected classes, becomes really critical. And what we need to do there, this may not totally answer your data governance question, but we need to make certain that our models are not incorporating the variables and metrics around protected classes and the proxy measures that could indicate protected classes. So it isn't about the fact that we're trying to treat everybody the same. In fact, that's not what we're trying to do. That's exactly the wrong thing to do. We don't want to treat everybody the same. We want to treat everybody based on how they want to be treated. We want to basically embrace the golden rule. That is to treat people as how we'd want them to treat us. So the data governance question becomes not an absolute. It's not. It's good or bad. It's a level of goodness given the cost of the false positive and false negatives, and then building a loop in your model so the data, the feedback is helping you to continuously refine the data so that you are building out more data that's more reflective of the audience and your customers you're trying to serve. Kind of a hard.
Thank you, Bill.
Did that make sense?
May I ask a
Yes,
question here
absolutely.
on your question, Hisham? So, and I would like to welcome Suzanne also, because this is a topic she mentioned. So AI governance is different than data governance. We should differentiate between both.
Amen. Amen. Yes.
Okay, so that was a very important point. I didn't know that. This is new to me. Definitely.
Yes. Yeah, I think data governance is really, really hard because we wrestle with like I said before, the absolute nature. And sometimes you're going to go forward with data that you know is not completely accurate, but it's good enough given the situation we're going after. AI governance, though, is absolute. And we need to make certain that we have feedback loops built into our AI models to track the model's false positive and false negatives, right? That AI governance is mandatory, because if we don't do that, remember, these AI models are going to make decisions billions of times faster than we as humans can.
Right.
And if we architect that wrong, it can literally, like I said before, optimize us right out of business.
Right.
Okay. Can I, Bill, on that note, it's me again, Hashim. One of your diagrams did have the ethical in the middle of all the bubbles. So do we have like a semi-agreement that ethical should be ethical plus AI governance that sits together in that area, or that would be too much?
Good question. Ask it again.
So in one of your slides, you did show us that the ethical bubble sits and connect between all the other bubbles. I can't recall the slide. So my question is, do you agree that we would need to have, in addition to that ethical lens, yes, that's the one. See, the ethics, would we agree that we need ethics plus AI governance that sits together?
I treat AI governance, to me, falls more into that AI and analytics techniques. I think ethics applies to all aspects. We can improve decision making and making ethical decisions that really don't impact AI. Right? We can make ethical decisions today if we embrace, ethics as the variables and metrics against which you want to measure decision effectiveness. Same thing around value. So I do think that AI ethics is different. Data ethics is different. And data ethics probably fits into that data and privacy awareness, while AI ethics probably fits into the AI and analytics bubble. But I think ethics fits into your decision making. I think the ethics fits into how you're making predictions and leverage statistics. I think ethics impacts how you create value and how you define the value creation process. And ethics is all about the foundation of how you leverage empowerment. So to me, I think there's derivations. You almost could see like the ethics was like a puzzle piece. You could see pieces of that ethics going into each of those other bubbles.
Yep. Thank you, Bill. Thank you. And
good question.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Hello, Kareem, and hello, Bill. That was a great, amazing session today. Thank you so much for your informative session. I was unlucky to start from the beginning. I came at the confusion matrix, and I was actually amazed about your talk about this point. And I wanted to ask a question. I think it was very related to Hisham's questions about the confusion matrix. And sometimes sometimes the confusion matrix is misleading because maybe the data itself sometimes is unbalanced, or it has like more false data than the positive, or vice versa. And also, I think that the bias will remain because it's the human nature that like need to think about any problems in the life or economic that will make this bias. So what is the from your point, how to overcome unbalanced or misleading confusion matrix, how to improve it by this way, and also the culture is the ethics. I believe in this. So the culture is has many challenging, like the first one is resistance.
Yes.
How to overcome it? Thank you.
Well, yes, there's a lot of questions there. So let's talk about the confusion matrix and its role in helping to drive AI governance and AI ethical results. The confusion matrix. Let me find that slide. Where be ye? Here we go. Let's look at the hiring example. That we're using an AI model. We fed it a bunch of data about our current best performing employees and our worst performing employees, and it's built a model, and it's used that model to, review resumes, run surveys, capture a bunch of data before we ever get somebody to have a chance to interview. And the confusion matrix has two areas in particular. I'm just going to talk on the false negative one about, how do you create that feedback loop so that your model is learning, right? The false, as I mentioned before, the false positive, if hiring somebody that you thought was going to do really well, but didn't do well, is actually pretty easy, because most organizations probably have an HR system, performance review system. They have, all kinds of information, conversations. And so you can leverage that data. You can say that you can associate that, right? You get an outcome, a failed employee. Here's all the data and metrics related to that failed employee, and you can feed that back into your AI model so it learns that, yeah, people sort of meeting these criteria may not be successful. Pretty simple, relatively. But think about the false negative. Think about the person you did not, right? And by the way, the minute you don't hire someone, we lose track of them. So the true negatives also, right? You don't really know a true negative because you don't know if they fail. So the feedback loop is going to demand that you find a way to track the people you did not hire, right? So if somebody, you didn't hire them, so maybe you track them on LinkedIn. You check their career. Do they get promotions? Have they been successful? You track them. Do they write papers? Have they gotten certifications? You might want to send them surveys. You might want to have somebody call and talk to them and ask about this. Now, people are going to say, well, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work to go and call people, all the people I didn't hire. And I would say, yeah, how else are you going to ensure that your model is always learning and growing? Your AI model is not static. Your AI model is a powerful economic asset, but it's only an asset if it's continuously learning and adapting based on the current environment. If you don't do that, we know we get model drift. We know models transition from being an asset to a liability. We get what I call orphaned analytics that are built once but never really engineered to be learning and adapting. Those are the worst kinds. And so the challenge we have as organizations, we think, oh, we're going to build a bunch of AI models. It's hard work to build AI models that are truly economic assets, that are continuously learning and adapting to the current environment. And that's going to require organizations to capture new data sets to make sure those models are learning and adapting from the false negatives, for example.
Thank you, Bill. Do you think, Bill, we have time for one more question?
Yes, we do.
Great.
Ahmed, please. Ahmed Dessouky. I think I can see you raising your hand. Ahmed Shaman, right.
Okay. Hi, Bill. First of all, thank you so much for such an insightful talk. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine, and he's working in a mid-sized startup, and he's talking about his lead or his manager, which is not a technical. My friend is a data engineer, of course, and he's a very technical guy. And his manager is not that technical. It's more business oriented or business focused. And it was then that I remembered something that we discussed in one of our local chapters meetings here, that people sometimes, or teams, especially the data team, sometimes think that that data platform is that they are the owner of data platform. And this is not probably the case, since in comparison to, let's say, the development team, which can run loose, quote unquote, since the features defined by the business is ratherly, they have the freedom to develop it or make it the way they want, as long as the features are do the intended task of them. On the other hand, the data teams, they are more of working closely with all other organization sections and departments. So they must not think of the data platform as their thing. No, it's something shared across the whole team or the whole organization. So I'm interested in hearing your thoughts about this, and in if making or hiring a business-oriented person to manage a more technical team could help in sharing or enhancing this vision or this culture, or perhaps it's not the best decision, since the friction of not having a common language or common skills between the two.
Good question. So I'm going to try to keep the answer short because I do have to jump to my next call. The business stakeholders need to be at the very front of this conversation, because organizations don't need to be data-driven. They need to be value-driven. And the people in the organization who understand value would be your business stakeholders and your external constituents like customers and suppliers and producers and partners and such. My book, The Art of Thinking Like a Data Scientist, was really written as a methodology for bringing together the business stakeholders and the data scientists in a collaborative process. Uses lots of design thinking techniques, uses more design thinking techniques than data science techniques, because the challenge isn't building the models. I know the data engineers and data scientists are brilliant. You can build meaningful models, but they need to be models that actually get used. And so if I don't have the business stakeholders at the very front of this process, owning the process and owning the outcomes of this process, then all the work that I'm doing in the data science and data engineering stuff is a waste. And so I think that your leader doesn't necessarily need to be a business person, but it needs to be somebody, and I would argue that everybody in your data science team needs to be aware of the business, how the business creates value, where the desired outcomes are, all the things that really, and the KPIs and metrics around which they define that. So I think that instead of putting business people on front, I think you start taking your data scientists and you start educating them a bit more on the business. And the last thing I'll say here, by the way, I try to detail that in my, I don't know if you read this book. This is the book before the last one, The Economics of Data Analytics and Digital Transformation. I wrote this book for business executives who were struggling to understand their role with data, right? Data is IT's problem. My book says, no, data is not an IT problem. Data is an economic problem. It's an economic opportunity. And so I think that, you know, building that collaboration, but the business has to define where we're going. We're the rudder, we're the engine, but they're the ones going to be directing us. And by the way, design thinking will be your best friend, because that's the tools that'll help to drive that collaboration. I'm sorry I have to drop. I know I'm running out of time.
Thank you so much. It's been a very insightful, and thank you for staying longer than intended, but have a great day and we'll connect later. Thank you. Thank you all
Thanks,
for
everybody.
attending. Thank you, everyone.
Right, cheers.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you, Bill.